Live from the Big G's Pizza Studio on Clark Street, this is 5 Songs with Friends, Chicago's music discovery podcast. Lower Automation is a math and panic punk band from outside Chicago. They have been playing together since 2015, and today I have Derek of the band on. Derek, what's going on, man?
Hey, not too much. How are you doing?
Dude, I'm amazing. Stoked to have you guys. Tell me a little bit about what is... So I'm a big math rock fan. Can't necessarily say I've heard a lot about math punk or what is panic punk. So can you tell us a little bit about what is this whole genre of music?
So I guess math punk, comes from, I don't like a lot of math rock, maybe is the best way to put it. A lot of times it's like kind of boring to me at a certain point, or a lot of it right now is very tame, which isn't a bad thing. It doesn't click with me, you know? I think the first time that I got into the idea of having punk music mixed in was in high school when I heard this band Project 86 and like Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff. But it's basically just, I think, the energy of punk mixed with the idea of math rock.
Very interesting. And so
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think it's cool. Like it definitely I enjoy the blend in your music of those two things because I'm a huge punk fan. Like I, grew up on a lot of, more poppier punk stuff, but there's just awesome energy that comes from these punk shows. And then like this cool technicality and like all of the awesome sounds you get from math rock, like combining the two, I think makes it for a really interesting sound overall.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what we were going for. We don't really use technicality as just because we want to be technical. I think it just kind of comes out that way, which I think is part of the panic thing. I think that Shoebox Companion sounds like our last EP sounds like a panic attack kind of. It's just very, very nervous sounding to me, which is kind of how all of us are. So it makes sense that it would be like that. But it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing,
right?
The panic punk, but I think it's pretty apt. For this stuff.
I think, that's a great word, like to put a bow on it, is panic, of like this whole, like all the chaos that's going on, throughout the whole EP. So like, can you walk me through like when, because this, this music takes a certain level of technicality and skill. So like, when did you all start kind of playing your instruments? And like, did you start on guitar? Did you start on piano? Like, how did this all start?
So I've been playing guitar for about 20 years. I started around I was like 6 or 7, somewhere around there. I played piano first. The guitar just kind of took over though when I started that. I don't know how long the other guys have been playing, but almost as long. I mean, we've all been playing since we were kids. Brian and I met through mutual friends, and then we met Matt over like a Facebook group or something like that, like years ago. And it just everything just kind of clicked.
So when you're that age, like what were some of like the first big guitar records that you picked up that like helped you get really excited about playing and help you learn?
I don't really remember what I was learning back then, like at first, but I do remember getting really into Jimi Hendrix when I was like 12. There's this band, they were like a Christian rock band from Australia called Beanbag. And They only had 2 albums, but some of like the weirdest guitar stuff. Like at that point in time, I think I was in 4th grade when one of their albums came out. I didn't like it. I had no idea what to make of it. And like to this day, I actually listen to those albums regularly. They're really interesting. That band, there was a band called A Wilhelm Scream, much more on like the punk hardcore side, that just like blew my mind. The album Career Suicide. One of my favorite albums of all time, and I learned like every song on that album. That was probably one of the biggest like turning points for me.
Nice. So I got to ask because I feel like there's like a bit of a divisiveness between, or like there's 2 different stances to take on this in the math rock genre. Like a lot of people, and like I don't want to put you guys into that group, but like this whole genre of really good guitar playing is like either you have a ton of pedals or you have like no pedals. So like, what stance do you take on that issue?
I'm for both. I saw, I have like 10 or something on my board. A lot, but I use all of them in the set. I saw Thurston Moore play at the Art Institute of Chicago, like probably like 5 years ago now. He did a live score for some film. I can't remember the name of it, but he was making all these sounds, and I actually like peered over and I saw he had like 2 pedals. And I was just like totally impressed. But then there's the dude from Terra Mellos, Reinhardt, I think is his last name, who has like 2 pedal boards and stuff. That's equally cool too. I think it just depends on the person. I've seen people with huge pedal boards not do very impressive stuff, and I've seen people with little boards not do very impressive stuff. So I think it depends on how you practice with them and, how you utilize all your tools.
Awesome. Well, so tell me a little bit about Shoebox Companion, because we do have a song to play off there. So that's an EP you guys came out with last year, right?
Yeah, just came out about early last August or July, somewhere around there. Yeah, so we actually recorded it last February, or somewhere around there. Well, so that was in the works for a while. Some of those songs we actually had written right after the last EP came out. And some of them had been written for a long time. They just took a while to learn. We were really obsessive about everything. So I remember in one of the songs, there was like one measure that we spent like a good 45 minutes to an hour talking about beats 3 and 4 and where that drum should hit, just like experimenting with all sorts of stuff. A lot of times I tend to write most of the stuff and then bring it to the other 2 guys, and then we edit it collectively. And most of it came out of just me messing around or like little things that I would hear. A couple of the parts did actually come from us just playing together. Like Tethered, actually, that came from a couple different like jam sessions or just from us practicing and messing around. But yeah, I think the idea behind the EP was just, to be really panicky. That's something that we kept, after our first EP came out, people kept saying that we sounded panicky, and I hadn't really thought about that. But I realized how important that is to me in music, especially like aggressive music. That urgent element. So that's something that I tried to express, because I am a very panicked, anxious person. So I tried to just let that come across. And so it just feels honest to me. It felt like I got out of the way of myself, if that makes sense, when I was writing my parts.
It's an authentic expression.
That's what it feels like to me. A lot of people are saying it's an At the Drive-In ripoff. None of us really listen to At the Drive-In, so I'm not totally sure where that comes from, but I can see like the influence for sure.
Interesting.
But it just, I think that's kind of it. It was just, when we were recording it, I remember telling the guys for their parts, just play like really aggressively, hit the strings really hard, hit the drums really hard, and lots of energy. I think it came across.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, especially in this track that we have today called Tethered. So can you do a little intro? You teased it a little bit, but can you tell me a little bit about the song?
Yeah, so that song, well, musically it came out of the intro bass line, actually Brian, our bassist, wrote. I don't know where he came up with that, and he just did it kind of on the spot. And then it starts off kind of simple. That just came out of I don't know, that might have been 2 years ago now that part came out, and we just recorded that little bit. And then I just messed around with it for almost a year, just like writing different parts and everything. And then Matt ended up kind of editing some of the drum parts, which he usually does. And the song just kind of came together. I honestly don't really remember how we came about the structure. It just kind of happened, I think. Lyrically, the song is about like personal relationships, dealing with or being interfered with by technology. Specifically, a relationship that I had where it kind of fell apart because of that. But it's also kind of dealing with like insecurities in relationships in general, I guess. A lot of the songs on this EP are not about just one thing; they're kind of all over the place. But yeah, that's basically that song.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into it. This is a song called Tethered by Lower Automation. All right, so that was Tethered by Lower Automation. And so you said that this was kind of like a song that took, almost a year or something like that to get fully kind of polished, fully final format of it. Like, is that typically how your songwriting process works? Or are there some songs that are just like quick and dirty, you get them right away? Like, what does that look like?
This EP, pretty much all of them took a long time. The majority of them kind of just like come out. And then it's about, these were about a year of editing. We'd edit them, kind of sit on them for a while, not touch them, and then listen to them again, and then realize, okay, we got to change this. So it was a lot of back and forth. There were so many parts written that we threw out. We actually ended up with 3 extra songs that we just re-recorded, and we're actually coming out with next month. But there was just a ton of extra material. So we did that so that we could put all the best parts on it, I guess.
Awesome, man. Well, so you guys are a 3-piece. Like, how is there any tips you have for maybe other bands that are 3 pieces or only have, 1 guitar and a bass player to like fill the sound? Because you do an incredible job of filling up the sound. I haven't heard you guys play live or anything, but I'm assuming you carry that over into the performance. So like, any tips or anything that special that you guys do?
I think the 2 big things we do, and that were kind of integral to the idea for the start of Lower Automation, were really distorted bass, so like just huge bass tones, and then small guitar is what I call it. But basically, I'm not usually playing like power chords. I'm not usually playing low notes. I'm usually playing on the higher 3 strings, higher on the fretboard. So there's space between what I'm doing and what the bass is doing. To me, that's how you kind of build something that occupies most of the frequency spectrum, as opposed to the guitar and bass playing the same part, which can be cool, but when it's done all the time, I think it gets kind of tired.
Yeah.
And that's where I like math rock and not punk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an interesting
different
twist.
Things happening.
Yeah. I like it, man. Yeah, I think it's kind of refreshing almost, like to hear, these 2 genres clashing like this, or I guess not clashing, more so collaborating, working well together. So I think it's really cool. I appreciate your sound and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, so are there any maybe bands that you guys are playing with soon or have played with in the past, or maybe just underground, under the radar artists that you think people should hear about and you want to give a shout out to?
Well, my favorite right now that comes off the top of my head is actually the singer of that band, Beanbag. He's an electronic musician, and he's working on a new album right now. His name is Hunz, Hunz. He's got a couple albums out that are just like incredible, really interesting electronic stuff. And we always love playing with our friends in Luca, who are from the Chicago area as well.
What's the name of it?
Yeah.
Luca,
Luca.
Okay.
They're some of our best buds. Really cool dudes.
Awesome, good stuff, man. Well, you guys have a gig coming up soon. People can check out in the local area on May 16th at Reggies Rock Club. So, anything else? Any other like releases? I know you mentioned you have 3 tracks. Are you going to release those in single format? Like what's on the radar for you guys?
Yeah, so we're actually going to have those 3 songs on tape at that show, and then shortly thereafter it'll be put up on our Bandcamp page. But yeah, come to the show and grab the tape.
Awesome. So May 16th at Reggies, Lower Automation. Anyone else on that bill, or are you guys headlining, or what's that look like?
Yeah, we're headlining, but we're playing with Disparager from New York. So it'll be eclectic. It'll be a fun night.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, so how can people stay in touch with you guys, be on social media or whatever the case is? How can people, stay up to date on concert dates and releases, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. We post all of them on our Facebook and most of them on our Instagram pages. Also on our website, you can sign up for our mailing list. So we try to send out all of our dates through that as well.
Fantastic. Well, Derek, thanks so much for coming on the show, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Awesome.